Pete Maverick Mitchell is back, and this time he's teaching Navy fighter weapons school. Top Gun Maverick follows the veteran fighter pilot as he grapples with the ghosts of his past, as drones, faster jets, and younger pilots seek to speed up his road to becoming obsolete. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. I love how you have these sound bites that are so appropriate to the check.
If you stay ready,
check.
Ready.
It's true. All right. This is Ronald. I'm leaving the theater after seeing Top Gun Maverick. I am here with
Nicole Hill.
Yes, it is Nicole and I once again. I think you matched for the most times co-hosted the show. You might have just edged out Curtis, who was my other.
Take that, Curtis.
He's going to be very indifferent because I don't think he listens to the show, even though he's on it all the time. So yeah, okay. Top Gun Maverick, directed by, written by Ehren Kruger. Oh, train going by. Gotta wait for the train. Danger zone. There it goes. Okay. Written by Ehren Kruger, Eric Warren Singer, and Christopher McQuarrie. Directed by Joseph Kosinski. Starring Tom Cruise, Miles Teller, Jennifer Connelly, John Hamm, Glen Powell, Lewis Pullman, Ed Harris, Val Kilmer, Monica Barbaro, Charles Parnell, Jay Ellis, and Danny Ramirez. Okay, so the last review I did was Top Gun 1986, which you saw. Mm-hmm. What did you think?
Stupid. It's a stupid 80s movie.
But okay, so one of the things I said about our review was that it wasn't great. I mean, I gave it 3 stars because I had to remember that it originated all the tropes that were in it.
Yeah. I mean, it did, but it's just a stupid movie. But that's okay. I don't think you have to be good when you're from the 80s. I mean, well, that's not true because I'm from the 80s, but I don't think
you're trash.
Movies have to be good. I think that's fine.
Did you ignore the
bad movie?
I disagree. I think it was a good movie.
What is good? What is your definition of good?
I think you got to listen to the. You should listen to the episode.
I listened to the episode, but I didn't hear you defend any of the quality of the movie. Just the tropes, which is fine. Tropes are fine.
Yeah, I mean the plot was thin. And I mean, the plot was thin, but watching it, I didn't feel bad. I felt good. It was fine. I didn't watch it and be like, man, this is garbage. How did this get made? You know what I mean?
I definitely don't think it was I didn't think how did it get made because it makes sense for the 80s. Mm-hmm. My parameters for good is would I ever in my life watch it again? And I am a definite movie rewatcher. I would never watch that again, but it's fine. I had a fine time.
If you were at a friend's house and y'all were having some sort of sleepover and you guys were, I don't know, just hanging out doing nothing and you wanted to put something on in the background, would you put that on?
Never, no.
What if they put it on? Would you tell them, nah, I refuse to watch this?
If it's their house, then I'm fine, and I'll be on my phone the whole time.
What if they're it's important for me to talk to you about this right now?
I wouldn't watch it.
Okay. You really don't like it?
It was important. There's so many movies I wouldn't rewatch. Any movie that there's this is good for the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think that is a good movie if it's just I just saw it in the moment and off I went and it's fine.
How many stars did you give it?
I would give it's an average 80s film. I would give it 3.
Okay, same here.
I wouldn't watch any 3-star movie again.
Okay. We're on the same page then. Because I think I wouldn't call it bad. I watched it. I was like, it was all right. But you're right. I don't think I would choose to watch Top Gun again. I would choose to make fun of Top Gun again. I would sing Danger Zone. Do we need to go stand somewhere?
Underneath that.
I don't know. I feel like as soon as we do it, y'all can't stand in front of the building. Oh, true, on the side. Yeah, that's smart. Okay, we're moving because it just started sprinkling. We can stand right here. There's a little ledge. But yeah, there's a little bit of sprinkling coming down, so we're trying to find a spot to stand. Okay, so
good has to be like
rewatchable.
For me to call it like minimum, I've got to want to rewatch it. And two, like there needs to be something where I walk away from that, and I've been made to look at the world a little. I mean, that's the power of movie making. Is like, okay, now I look at something a little different.
3 stars is not low.
What's the? Is it 5? How many stars is it?
It's 5.
Yeah,
no, I'm not mad. I appreciate the 3, and that's what I say. I think a 3 is average too. But everyone gets mad at me whenever they're like, "What do you give it?" I'm like 3.25, and they're like, "What? 3.25?" And I'm like, "What do y'all be giving 4 stars to?"
Yeah, what like the minimum? Would you watch it again? Would you go home and put it on
purpose?
On purpose, exactly.
Yeah,
it's not. Oh, it was on, and I left it on.
Like, I gotta watch this.
I want to see it.
Yeah. Okay, we're on the same page. Okay. Well, with that in mind, I'll tell you this. I was excited to see Top Gun Maverick because I knew one, and I don't know if you agree with this. I think Tom Cruise is good at making movies.
He's excellent. He's an excellent movie star.
Yeah,
he's a dangerous man, but he's an excellent movie star.
Agreed. And I struggle knowing where to put him because of the religion stuff. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to get pinged on the watch list. Yeah, but because of the religion stuff, he's tough to pin down. And sometimes I don't know how much he buys into it himself based on
100%.
I think he buys into the power 100%.
Yes.
I don't think he buys into the stuff 100%.
I don't know. I never talked to him, but it seems like he does.
I will say, like, the rant that we heard from him doing Mission Impossible, when I listened to him do it, I was like, man, he really cares about some aspects of the pandemic that I would not pin him caring about based on what I knew about him. You got to look it up, but he's basically fussing because he's like, he says, listen, I don't need to do this movie. He's like, he doesn't need to do this movie. He says, but if we don't do this movie, there's a bunch of jobs that aren't created. He's like, all of these Bamas aren't going to have jobs if we don't do it. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay. So, and that kind of like put it in a different perspective. And then the choices and stuff that he makes, even as an actor in his films, it just always begs me the question. I'm like, man, if I could pop the top and see what's going on in there, I'd be curious. You know what I mean? But like, there was a lot of public stuff that soured people on him, and there's stuff in the rumor mill where you're just like, who is this guy? You know?
Yes, agreed.
So, but that being said, we both agree he's a great movie. He's a movie star. He makes good movies,
like in the good old fashioned kind. You know, like what the young people, what Gen Z doesn't know.
Yeah.
Is that back in our day, movie stars were inaccessible, on Mount Olympus, mysterious and perfect and whatever.
No social media.
None of that, like, oh, here's me farting. I'm just like you. Gross. No. Gross. We just, the most we got was like, here's them at the grocery store, you know, and that was like, oh my God.
And that was in Us Weekly.
And exactly. It was like, oh. Yeah. But now it's like, you know, everybody's all around and stuff, and there's something to the mystique. I like that.
Agreed. And I think, but the choices that he makes, like the movies make you feel something. And when I say that, I don't mean necessarily feel like the Oscar level feel, but in terms of like you're at the edge of your seat. And I enjoy that about movies. Like a lot of the ways, when I think of the early Tom Cruise stuff, I think of Mission Impossible, of course. I think of, what else was he?
What's his other franchise?
Which one was the other franchise?
I always watch Mission Impossible, and I always got excited for, he was terrible in Jack Reacher. That was really bad.
I did not like the Jack Reacher movies.
His Cameron Diaz one wasn't good.
I didn't like that either. Edge of Tomorrow was fantastic.
War of the Worlds was good.
It was all right.
You didn't like it? I thought it was great.
I don't like when people be disrespecting their parents in movies.
Oh, that kid? Was the kid... All I remember is the little girl, Dakota Fanning.
They were both.
There was another child.
Yeah, there's an older son who's like, give me dad. Give me dad.
Long hair.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm glad I don't see him in movies anymore, because every time I'm like, man, you a jerk. And you treat your father like that at the end of the world. The point is, we like Tom Cruise. Yeah. So I was excited for this movie. I heard that he put him through the ringer in terms of like making him fly. He's like, nah, we're going to put him on planes. He demanded that this movie was shown on the big screen, which I think, honestly, if you're going to watch this, watch it on either the biggest screen you can find with a great sound system, or watch it in theaters. And there were little choices that he made in this one I think were good too. For instance, when he demonstrates the strain that it takes to fly a plane, they didn't really do that much in the first one. They didn't do a lot of but they did that a lot in this one. So what did you think of this movie overall?
I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
The plot is it's not there.
No.
It's silly and silly.
No.
But I will say I am from Virginia Beach, so I grew up with the military and the
Navy's right
the
there.
Navy,
Yeah.
and we did.
You grew up right next to the Navy.
I grew up. My dad's in the Navy.
Yeah.
Everyone was in the Navy.
Yeah.
And we grew up with we had to go to those air shows all the time.
Okay.
And they're just the most boring memories I have.
Yeah.
They're almost gone because of how boring they are.
Okay.
And I hate movies about planes. And there's a pilot, and you just look at him and his face as he goes around. So boring. This one, I was fully engaged. Like everything that they didn't nail outside the plane in terms of plot, they nailed it in the final sequence. There was a whole story. It was perfect.
Yep.
Anytime they were out of the plane, it was like, get back in there.
Yeah.
But whenever they were in the plane,
Yeah.
it was like, Howard Hughes was like so into this. His whole dream, he made Hell's Angels, and it turned all this stuff around in filmmaking. And I like finally understood why he invested himself in that vision so much, because when you can get it right like that, that was extraordinary. And I can't tell you how little I care.
Yeah.
And I was just like, go Mach 10, do it.
That was a great start.
Yeah. That was good. Well, in the beginning, I didn't care that he went Mach 10, but then later on, when they had to do it at the end, I was like, do it, Tom, you could do it. Don't go too far though. Like it was just.
Well, I don't want to actually to you on but going Mach 10 and taking 10 G's isn't exactly the same thing.
Okay. That's a demonstration of how I don't care. We ran into there is my lack of caring.
I understand.
But the number 10 is what I latched on.
And I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty sure that was done by design.
Exactly.
And a lot of it. I mean, a lot of the setup. This movie sets up well. First of all, if you liked Top Gun, if anyone who's listening to this who's like, I love Top Gun, I watched it with my dad. Oh my God, you are going to love this movie. You should take your dad to see it. If they're still around, you should take your parent to see it. Take your kids to see it. Take your kids. Show them Top Gun 1986. It's not called Top Gun 1986. I'm just wanted to differentiate between this and Maverick. But show them Top Gun and then take them to see Top Gun Maverick, because you are absolutely correct. Like everything about this was they nailed a lot of the setup. All of the things that were set up, they set them up well, and they slam dunked it all the way home, which I really appreciated. Like the one thing for the instance that they start off the movie with him being basically a test pilot for a high speed plane. You know what I mean? It was it just sets it like, oh, Maverick's sent up to the same old things, and then after that they start to tell you a story about where he is in his life right there, which I just thought was just good storytelling. What did you think? I know you're a storyteller, so what did you think?
I thought it was very sad. I thought it was very sad to see that he is literally exactly where he was.
Well, they point to that.
It's a tragedy, actually. So I was like, I don't like this story. And then everyone was like, you're so old.
Oh my God, you're right. In the early beginnings, they kind of point to that a lot. They're like, oh, Maverick, you're old. And then I think one guy who says to him, he's like, you could have been a senator, you could have been all these other things, and here you are piloting planes,
exactly
doing the same thing. And he's like, but I think, okay, so consider it like this. If we think, let's assume that they're great storytellers. Think about the fact that Goose dies at the end of 1986. Sorry if y'all ain't seen Top Gun, spoiler, but Goose dies in Top Gun, and then when they say you can have any mission you want, because he does a great mission at the end of Top Gun, Maverick does, and he says, I'm gonna go back and start teaching Top Gun. And for me, if we make this about grief, then it's not surprising that as soon as we find him in the plane going really fast, he's still saying, talk to me, Goose, like what's going on. So he's still stuck in the same place. And a lot of the ways that grief put you in the same place, even though you're trying to move forward.
30, 40 years? Wait, I was born in 1986.
Yeah.
So my entire life, he has been doing one thing.
Yeah.
That's not a good story.
I think that's a good story. I think it's a sad story. It doesn't make it a bad
It
story.
doesn't make me feel like I can't say I felt any emotion outside of the plane. I don't think that because the script writing, I honestly think it was on purpose, because Tom Cruise can, he doesn't do great scripts, but he can do better scripts. And I think that they were in an homage to the 80s. We were just doing little, you're dangerous, little lines, but not like full on scripting to tell you something. Like we're not going to do, Like, for example, they don't do two-person shots. They do close-up, single shots, because this isn't a movie about words and dialogue. It's just going to be about visuals, which they set you up for from the beginning. They pick a bunch of people with super square faces and really small mouths. It's mainly jaws, and then big eyes so they can eye act in the helmets. But when you do just close-ups, it's like, this isn't going to be about two character scenes and dialogue, etc. This is about like one character feeling, and then we move.
That's true, but I think like they laid the groundwork there, and I don't know if you're giving this movie enough credit, because at some point he says, if we talk about the fact that him being stuck in grief, and the only thing that propels him forward is basically because he's going to wash out of the Navy. They're basically being like, hey, you about to be gone. The cameo with Ed Harris only existing because he looks like the guy in the first movie who sent him to Top Gun in the first place, who also ended up having respect for him before he was like, you son of a bit, here you go out here running around, but you're going to Top Gun. Gosh darn it, you're going to Top Gun. You know what I mean? You have him, but I'm saying, like, if you have him stuck in this place, you have Iceman pulling him out of this place. At the same time, here he is at Top Gun, where all of these ghosts come back to him. Here comes back a Rooster, and here comes back, and when the only moment that he has to actually, let's say, move forward and make a different decision is when he's sitting down with Iceman, and Iceman tells him to let it go. And at that point, it's like, okay, this is a spiritual, and granted, it is very plotty, and it is very beat driven at that point. But it is the point in which he like propels him forward. That's the only reason why I say I think it's doing better storytelling, because it is played like in terms of like interesting, maybe not, but it is effective, I think.
I think it is a smart way to move from 1986 to 2022.
Agreed.
What I mean smart, I mean like functional, like easy, where it's like, you know what? Let's just have nothing have happened since 1986. I don't want to write a whole backstory. Just have him exactly where he was when the credits ran, and then let's start there. In terms of, that's why I mean, like, if you want to do something easy, then you do that, and that was great, and that's fine. Because
we've seen it bad
in the plane.
But we've seen it bad when we've seen them, and I agree with that. But I feel like we've seen it bad when we've seen other movies where they updated and they've been like, all right. In the meantime, when you haven't seen so-and-so, and I can't, none are jumping to mind, but we've seen the updated movie where they've been like, all right, and then, for instance, Jurassic Park. Okay. Jurassic Park, the next time we see Sam Neill again, Dr. Grant, when we see him in Jurassic Park 3, there's no indication that him and Ellie didn't get married or any of that, except for the fact that he calls her and they're just friends and she has a whole family and all that, and I was like, hey dog, what happened to that relationship? You were ready to fight Dr. Ian Malcolm over this, and like we're not gonna talk about all that in between, but they still do. Well, before you go, I'm saying that, but they still do the same thing that Maverick does, which is instead of freezing everything and just being like, we're gonna pick up where we left off, they're like, hey, stuff happened, but anyway, we're gonna start right back from the same point anyway. So like it's almost like they're just waving their arms and going through the motions, but not actually advancing the plot in any significant way that makes it helpful, is what I'm saying. So I'm like, I prefer the freeze method. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I don't. I don't think Jurassic Park 3 was a great movie.
Oh, I don't think so either. That's exactly what I'm saying, though. That's what I'm saying.
Great movies choose this plot, this point, because it's just like, it's just functional.
Yeah.
They're like, listen, we don't care about the story. It doesn't matter what happened.
They didn't freeze it.
Oh, you think that this one didn't freeze?
This one did freeze.
Right.
Jurassic Park did not freeze.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I would prefer a choice. Not like give me something. He tried something and he failed because he hasn't learned important lessons, or he is where he is, but he really wants to change, or he is exactly where he is because he has actively chosen it and can communicate that in some way that matters.
Yeah.
Really, what we saw is like he is where he is. He's kind of happy. It's fine. Yeah. Like he's just kind of like bopping around through life.
Yeah.
That is fine.
Yeah.
It's just not interesting to me.
I will say the point when they point out the ways in which he has conflict with Rooster, I thought was, at least they told us, because I thought this was just going to be about you got my dad killed. And I was like, that's kind of weak, because I'm like, we know that's not the case. But for them to make it something else, for him to be actively angry about, thought that was a great choice.
I completely agree. I was so impressed with that, because up till then, I just felt like it was just lazy.
Yeah.
But then when they were like, no, this is actually about an action.
This is fresh.
He has actually made a choice and done a thing.
Yeah.
And it was the first time time that I saw him in the movie have agency.
Yes.
And that was the first time that I cared about him at all. Otherwise, he was just like, he's just a dude that stuff is happening to.
I got you.
But finally, he was a dude who made decisions.
I got you. It definitely leaves him a little, there's not much character there. And I think part of it is also, which is, I mean, we can get into the misogyny a little bit. The fact that Jennifer Connelly's character only exists because Kelly McGinnis doesn't look the way they want her to look right now, which I know that's the truth. I don't need anyone to write it down, but I know it just based on the person that they chose. They chose Jennifer Connelly, who's a great looking woman, long hair, like, you know what I'm saying? She looks like someone who, if you look at her, you'd be like, oh, I would be attracted to her. Even if she was young, I'm attracted to her now. That's the types of things they would say about Jennifer Connelly. Whereas Kelly McGinnis, look, there's nothing wrong with her. She looks exactly how she should look at her age, this is not a commentary on how people should or shouldn't look, but it is a commentary on the choices that Hollywood makes based on your looks, because her entire character was not thick enough to exist in this movie if she's not his old flame.
Right. I mean, it's true. But he needed, because he doesn't really have any interiority, his literally only interior thought is, in 1986, I got Goose killed and I feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
He needs to be able to express that in a way that we would care about.
Yeah.
So you just need like some woman.
Yeah.
And so I don't even think you could have an older woman, to be honest, because I was thinking about that of like, okay, well, Kelly.
Well, she is an older woman.
She is, exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't think you could have a Kelly McGinnis age woman.
They're the same age, I think.
Are they?
I think
Jennifer
the thing.
Connelly's in her 50s?
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that. Okay, we could Google it, but I'm fairly certain. Actually, let's Google it right now. We're gonna.
Kelly's got to be. I'll look up Kelly.
All right, I'll look up Jennifer Connelly. You look up Kelly McGinnis.
She's 64.
Kelly McGinnis.
Yeah.
She's 51.
64 and 51 is very different.
In Hollywood years?
Yeah.
I don't agree.
Imagine how you would look if you were 51.
Okay. Well, let's look up Tom Cruise's age. Tom Cruise is 59 years old.
And she's 64.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't think it's just about, because I'm like, if you look at 64-year-old women in Hollywood, like, look at freaking, I mean, Ellen Barkin is in her 60s.
She doesn't look like Kelly McGinnis.
No, but like, that's what I'm saying. I feel like the idea of them choosing a 51-year-old woman that is Jennifer Connelly, that's just like, oh, look, she is older, even though she's 8 years his junior, as opposed to Kelly McGinnis, who is still alive. Are we saying her name right? McGillis. I'm sorry. It's Kelly McGillis.
She's not an actor anymore.
That's true. But she also said she wasn't even invited to be back in it. And so, okay, and I'll give you further information. Meg Ryan.
I know, where's she?
She's dead, apparently. That's the thing. She said nobody ever asked her.
I mean, you don't need women in this movie.
You don't, but if you're going to put them in there.
You really only need them to draw out emotion. This is like, I feel very much like this is an 80s movie. I don't think the script is important. Yeah, I think that they intentionally did some things to pay homage to the original.
Yeah.
And that is why I'm like, okay, this is like, that's why I don't find the script to be good. I don't find the story to be strong, but it wasn't in the 80s. And I feel like if they came back with a really strong story with empowered women, with like all that stuff, it's like they made it for us, but they didn't make it for us.
Well, that's why they bring back old girl. The woman pilot.
They brought her back or didn't bring her back?
Well, that's why they bring her in.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like
that's like, okay, millennials, but this is for our parents.
Yeah.
And they're like, remember how it used to be?
Yeah.
And I think that they just did that. So it's like our parents, I don't think that when my parents went to go see Top Gun, they were like, this is a really thin plot. This dialogue is horrible. This is like whatever. But it just felt good. Like it reminds you of a moment, you know? And I feel like very much they've been trying to, all the ads, the campaign, it's been about building this up to a moment. Yeah. And it did feel like a moment going to see it. I don't think it is good, but I can appreciate what they're doing. I think the role of women is ridiculous and thin. I don't think that Kelly should or would have come back. And I think if you would have seen a 64-year-old woman who looks like a 64-year-old woman, and her job is to be like, what happened with Rooster? Oh, to be like, hey, old guy, what happened with your specific students at school? Oh, they told you can't do it. You know what you should do? You should do it. Like, I feel like a 64-year-old woman would be like, what are you even doing? Why are you not moving on in your life? I have serious questions about your decision making. Yeah. She was kind of like, I'm a Maverick girl. You're a Maverick boy.
They gave her a light backstory, but like, well, at one point you broke her heart. So I'm like, for me to put those threads in there enough was to say, because to me it still feels like they wrote this part for the ghost of Kelly McGillis, and then instead they just swapped somebody out. That's what it felt like to me. Well, the house was exactly the same. You pointed it out. It was the same house.
Yeah.
Any of the circumstances that applied to Kelly McGillis, like her having a child and him breaking her heart first, were things that could have happened to Kelly McGillis. The only thing that would have made it more is if that child would have been his and he would have had a fraught relationship with the child at some point. You know what I mean? So I feel like, to me, it felt a bit like plug and play. And that's not to dispute anything you said. It's actually to reinforce it, to say that the use of women in this movie felt like if you're not going to do it, then just don't. But I think they did what they thought was the best job that they could. And I still think that there's a place where Meg Ryan exists. He has a talk with her, and she's the one that tells him, you need to move on, all that stuff. And granted, I'm glad it was Val Kilmer. Bless his heart. Like, that was so tough, like, to watch, you know.
That
but
documentary is crushing.
Yeah.
It's good.
You should watch it if you want to know more about Val Kilmer. I think it's called Val. But you should watch it if you want to know about Val Kilmer and the choices that they made with him in this movie. It was very good to see him. It did make me sad, and it did make me sad. But not in a way that, more of in a way is like, you know, the way that you feel sad to see all of your people like transition, move on, or not be what they were. You know, like the same way. Yeah. So, but yeah, okay. So let's get to it. Like, what did you?
Wait. One last thing about Kelly
Sure.
McGillis. This is what I thought about Jennifer Conley. She was very much meant to be in a way that Kelly wasn't. Kelly was more of a rule follower who was like, "I'll break the rules because I love you."
Yeah.
And this girl was like, they just made her a lady maverick,
Yeah.
and so she's like, "Oh, look, when you come in, I say something crazy to you. You pay for everybody."
Yeah.
And then like, "Oh, look at me. She just was like kind of mavericky."
Yeah.
So
with all of that in mind, what did you think of the movie? How many stars would you give it?
I'll give it 3. I don't want to see it again, but I really enjoyed myself when I was watching it in the plane. I loved it.
I feel like you might have talked me out of a 3.5 star rating.
Oh no.
But I mean, I think it's appropriate. Like, I would average it to a 3.25 star anyway.
Okay.
Because you gave it 3 and I gave it 3.5. So I'm like, 3.25 sounds about right. And I feel like I'm saying this because I really want to make sure that everybody who loves Top Gun hears me saying, go see it.
Yeah.
Like, go see it in the theaters. It's very good. But also, for those of you that are like, Top Gun, you're right. You're absolutely correct. It's that.
Yeah. But you should go see it because it's just nostalgic and it's beautifully shot, and because the aerial scenes are worth it.
Yeah.
The best action I've seen in a plane ever.
I agree. I think all of the work that they did going up in planes was really shown in this movie, and I appreciated that. So, yeah, overall, I give it 3.25 stars. I feel good about that.
I do too.
I think we talked about a lot, and I don't know if we covered everything, but yeah, no, that works for me. Any final thoughts? Anything that we did not talk about that you want to cover?
No. Just there's like specific lines of dialogue where I was like, oh my God. And also there's like, you know, Tom Cruise. So there's like, he does have a lot of particular things. He does not want to be, part of why he doesn't do 2-person shots is because he's so small. Yes. And he allowed one, which was shocking.
Miles Teller.
Fast.
Yeah.
He was like,
but it was like noticeable.
Exactly. I can't believe he allowed it.
Yeah.
But you know, he's like, I'm not so vain. Look, here's one.
Yeah. Which I'm like, I mean, you shouldn't just be the size you are. Just be the size you are, man. You're still Tom Cruise. You know what I mean?
I will not allow it.
It just seems wild at this point because it feels like if I were him in the early 90s and 2000s, I'd be like, nah, never. But now that I'm Tom Cruise, like that's like 59, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I'm short as crap.
Exactly.
Who cares? You know how many movies I've done? You ain't done none.
Exactly.
Old tall looking boy.
He's not having it though, and it was so interesting. I always look for that. He's got like very specific things that he wants done and ways he wants to be shot and stuff like that. And he also had this one thing when there's another scene where they are together, but because of the terrain, they are equal in height. Yeah. And he was like, I will allow this. And that was a much longer 2-person shot.
Agreed. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, with that, go see it if you want. If you're a fan, see it. But yeah, with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. The show is mixed by Thomas Tyra of Bias Studios. Thank you, Thomas. To find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studios shows, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. If you like this show, I host another show for Pineapple Street Studios called HBO Docs Club. Check that out wherever you listen. Leave it in theater. We'll be back soon. Thanks for listening. Wow, that kind of shook me. Yo, the world is small. I'm always afraid of running into somebody.
Tiny.
Yeah, okay.